Hi, in this particular tutorial we're going to talk about how to utilize North Carolina OneMap GIS data services and downloadable data. We have a lot of data that we can utilize and imagery that we can utilize from NCONEMAP, and we're lucky to live in a state which has a good resource of consolidated data and services. Some of them we can download to our own personal computer and we can import export query, and we also have services that we can connect to sitting on their servers in Raleigh that we can connect to and utilize if we don't want to download that particular data. Let me talk about some of the things that we can do here. You can see right here I have a map of the North Carolina counties. First thing I'm going to do is download some GIS data, superimpose it on top, and then next thing I'm going to do is connect to the GIS data services. So I have two things in one. So if you're taking my Geography 3435 or my 4010 or my EASC 5120 or 5125 classes, this talks about how to download and utilize GIS data sources, because at some point in time you're going to need to make your own map or your custom-made map in which you need to use different types of data from different types of sources, and this is just one of the examples that we're looking at here. Now, NCONEMAP is a really good data source here. We can connect to it by going to www.nconemap.com, and you can see the web page here. You can see over on the right here we have a blog that has new announcements, new data that we've added, and we can have Discover Get Data here. The one thing that I'm going to do here is right in the middle here I see Discover NC's geospatial data, and I'm going to click on this. First thing I'm going to do is just download data, and I can find resources. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into here in my resource and I'm going to type in the word schools. I want to download GIS data for all of the schools. For some of our exercises we download school data. We use spatial joins to count the number of schools by county or see where they're located, and some of my other more detailed projects we map high school football teams or whatnot to look for optimization using network analysis. So I'm going to click on schools and I'm going to click search. And you can see anything with the keyword school has it right here. I have non-public schools, and we can look at the extent down here on the map. I have public schools in North Carolina, and I'm going to just click on this here. This data set's an updated version of the 2008. New schools were geocoded and merged. I can download or open it. Now let me click on the details too. Okay, and this talks about when it was updated. And this basically is a short little metadata that talks about when it was created. Publication date was 2012, August of 2012. This is kind of interesting because the school my kids go to wasn't open until 2009. So when I originally worked with this data from 2008, their school wasn't there. So I would imagine their school is going to be here now. This talks about all of the information that I have, who created it, the contact for all of this too. So, and some of these attribute domain values for each of these. So we can look at all the different attributes. We can look at the administrative, the structural, and the other information and the descriptive information that describes this data set, who to contact it, and how it was created. Now we have a download link here in zip format. So I'm going to just click on this here, and I'm going to do File, Save As, and I assume this is going to be in a shapefile right here. So I'm just going to save this. Okay, and I'm going to save this to my temp here. This is a zip file, so I can save this anywhere. I'm going to save this to temp. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to download it, and I'm going to open this up. This is a zip file, and you can see right here this is looks like to be a shape file. Okay, so I can definitely see that this is a shape file here, and I'm just going to extract it, and I'm going to extract all, and I'm going to extract it to my C temp file. And you might want to save it to your project folder or wherever you're saving it to. Now you'll notice here I can't click on anything here and open it up, so I'm going to have to open up my ArcMap and add it this way. So click my black plus sign, click on my add data, and go to my temp, my C, my temp, I think it was called schools. Here it is. Okay, so these are all, I believe these are the public schools here in the state of North Carolina. I can right mouse click here, open my attribute table, and I can see the 2,594, and I believe these are public schools. And you can see all of the information about those, if they have a pre-K, if they have an early college, the beginning grade, the ending grade. A lot of good information. The number of teachers, I don't think it has the enrollment here because that enrollment usually changes, but it has an LEA, which is the local education area, and this is a unique identifying number for the actual school itself. So when we download data from the DPI, Department of Public Information, whether it's about EOG scores or EOC scores, they're usually associated with an LEA school because there's a lot of different Jefferson Elementaries or Northern high schools. So this LEA is an effective key so that we can link this information to an individual school. And you can see here, I live over in Guilford County, and you can see my kid's school is there now where it wasn't before. Now, another type of information that we have are servers. So we can connect to these servers too. And I'm going to show some information about our servers. So I can download this, and if I want to, I can do some select by locations. I can do some queries here. So I can do my selection, select by location. I can select my schools that intersect with counties, apply, because you can imagine if you don't want to work with all the counties, you're going to have to create your subsets using your clips, or you select by location or queries and do your right mouse click here, data, and export to the appropriate file if you don't want to work with all 2,600 files or 2,600 features. Okay. The other file that we have here are GIS data services. Now if I went back to North Carolina One Map and looked at the blog, we would see that we're able to connect through our services. Okay, so we have services that we can connect to, and I'm going to show an example of those. Now the address for these services is http://services.ncone.map.gov/arcgis/services. So what I'm going to do here is copy and paste this into the appropriate GIS data services. Now you notice this data that we downloaded, it's going to be accessible on my C drive or my D drive or wherever I stored it here. Now down towards the bottom in my catalog, and I can also do this in my standalone ARC catalog application, is that I can add GIS data services. Now in this particular instance, I want to click on Add ArcGIS Service. And I'm going to click on this here, and I'm going to it takes me through a little wizard here, and it says, what do I want to do? I want to use ArcGIS services. If we want to publish GIS services for the web to use or people to use, or if we want to administer these, we can do these. We're going to be users or consumers in this case here. My server URL is always going to start with HTTP, and I'm just going to cut and paste this services.nc1map.gov, ArcGIS, and services straight into this. And I'm going to click Finish. And now we're going to be connecting to our server over in Raleigh. It's thinking. It's still thinking. Okay, there it is. So down toward the bottom here, you can see my ArcGIS services, and now when I click on this, it looks like we have just added a brand new data connection here. So we've got elevation, imagery, NCGIS 2015. These are some of the other data that we have here that we can add. One of the things that I was looking at was energy. So I can drag this over to my table of contents, and now we're not using up any resources. There's going to be a little bit of time that it takes up to add these. We have wind power potential. Look at some of the information that we have here. So we've got our wind power potential. You can see it's really high over near the coast. We've got gas stations here too. So I can zoom in over here, over to where I live, over towards my county, and I can see here are all the gas stations in my county. Now we're going to have to refer to our metadata to see how up to date this information is and whatnot. But this is some really powerful information. Now when I go to this here, I have two opportunities here, or two possibilities. I can zoom to my layer, or I can look at my properties. Same thing with here. I can expand all my sublayers. I can remove. I can view an item description here that talks about this. But it's difficult to look at some of the attribute information for these services. Okay, you can see for this particular one here, I can't even see this because there's some errors in the XML file attached to it. So if I wanted to look at the actual individual information, I might want to go back to the way that we got our schools. Another powerful thing that we can do here that saves a lot of time is that we can look at our imagery. Okay, we can see all the different imagery, and as you know, NC1Map agglomerates or accumulates their imagery on an annual basis, and they might cover different parts of the state in different years. So I can look at the ortho imagery latest, ortho imagery all, or ortho imagery latest cached, and I can drag this over here so I can get a snapshot of all of my imagery. Okay, I'm going to drag this one up top. And I might even drag my schools up top here. So now I can zoom in, and this is imagery, and this is very, very, very powerful imagery. But you can see geocoded locations here. Here the high school. This is Northern Guilford Middle School, Northern Guilford High School right here, superimposed on top of this very good imagery that's sitting on some other server. You can see this gas station right here. So if I use my identify button right here, hopefully it's going to show it to me. Okay, as you know, when we use these, it takes a little bit more time to connect to these here, but this is Gunter's Convenience at 5900 Church Street, since it's sitting on a remote server. And the same thing with these over here. These were geocoded imagery, so I would imagine these are probably right at the street here. Here's my school. And then you can see this is Northern Guilford High School, Northern Guilford Middle School. Okay. But in conclusion, you can see we have a lot of good GIS data sources from NC1Map, some that we can download and utilize and customize for our own services, and some that we can connect to. This imagery would take up a lot of space if we were sitting on our own personal computer, and now we can connect to this with a couple clicks of the button. And as you look here, we look at parcels, recreation, regional boundaries, transportation, watersheds. So those people wanting to utilize that for their mapping or aesthetic purposes are allowed to do so also.